So tonight, so I'd like to welcome everybody tonight. Tonight we have Heidi in the hot seat, and we have a pretty interesting topic tonight. And I'm sure we'll have a very good discussion about this. And we've got John, of course, and we've got Terry. She's on with us. And we're gonna have a really good discussion tonight. I think we're gonna get to know Heidi a little bit, and then we'll jump right into the topic at hand and the conversation at hand. So, how you doing tonight, Heidi?
I am excellent. I told my boys, I was like, okay. And I was prepping them for like a couple days, like, okay, you remember, I'm having this. You guys can choose a Sunday movie to watch. You will not be coming in to talk to me because I will not be able to talk back to you.
Don't
And-
come and ask for food.
Well, we just ate an early dinner, so they should be fine. But I mean, I have a 16-year-old, so he can handle whatever. It's just, he was actually the one in here a few minutes ago. He's like, I need such and such for a project. I'm like, dude.
Well, as long as you're not gaming like Terry's kids,
Oh my
they
gosh.
get on there,
this
start
is the worst.
hosting. They start
I
hosting
know if he's going to
150
game,
gamers.
it would be on my laptop, which he doesn't have. So I have it.
Yeah, my son's like, I'm not on there. And I'm like, well, the internet's like telling me you are on there.
Yeah.
I want to get my little white box, my circle going, because I'm like, this is insane. Because we have device use issues. At least I think they're issues. But yeah, no, today's great. I actually got to teach my youth Sunday school class today. I love that calling. So great.
Yeah.
Yes, I teach the middle class. So like 13, 14, and 15, I guess.
Yeah, it's a tough age. I mean, I've taught them all. I don't know why I'm like the designated like youth guy. Like I'm either working with the priests, the teachers, the priests, whatever, or I'm teaching Sunday school with the youth. So I don't know what it is, but I'm like the youth guy. So
Yeah, when they called me in to be the young women's secretary, they were gonna release me from the Sunday school, and I was like, wait, please don't, because I mean it's normally only once a month. Right now, I'm teaching both because my partner got married and moved, so great for her, but a little busy for me. But
she got married, and she's like, "See ya."
Well, they bought or built a house in Jerome, just right next to Twin Falls. So it was like one of those awesome, almost Cinderella-ish type stories. I mean, not actually like Cinderella, but I mean a fairy tale type story. Because
like, wow.
I know, yeah, no, not actually really like Cinderella. But he hadn't been married or divorced for very long at all, like weeks maybe when they met.
Oh yeah, that's not good.
Not generally, I wouldn't think, but I think it'd been a situation where they had emotionally detached they had been for quite some time, and it was a matter of formalities. I mean, he wasn't on like dating sites or getting to know women when he was officially married, but he was ready to move on maybe more quickly than some. And she'd been divorced for several years, but it's just, and she was completely on her own, like on her own. Her ex-husband, it's like he forgot he had children. I don't know. It's weird. But anyway, so her husband just adopted her 2 boys that are at home still. So exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So where are you from?
Twin Falls, Idaho. Well, I mean, that's where I live now. That's where I'm from Washington. But
from Washington. We have so many like people from Washington. It's like
I know, it's so annoying. Gosh.
it's like another mini Utah up there.
No, it's not, Corey. Bite your tongue.
I was gonna say
I am neither overjoyed or enthralled by that reality.
Yeah, you're up against a Washingtonian and a Utahn. That's fighting words there.
I've met good and not so good from every state. So
what's that phrase? It takes all kinds. Where?
That's one of the phrases. So.
It takes all kinds.
So what part of Washington were you from? Were you born and raised in?
So teeny tiny town called Cedarowoli.
Okay, I know where that's at.
You know where that is?
Yes, I live in Washington.
Yeah, but you live on the east side, don't you?
Yeah, but it doesn't mean I don't know where it is on the west side.
Oh, well, like every single person I meet, they're like, I'm just about. They're like, I don't know where that is. So I
I
tell
have
them,
family on the west side. I
Yeah.
play soccer on the west side. So yeah, I know where that's at.
okay, yep, where everything's green and lush and beautiful, and it's also very cloudy.
Yeah. And downpour rain. Yeah.
Yeah, people would like. We had this old dairy farm barn on the property that my parents bought, and we didn't have a dairy farm, but that's what it was used for. And like people would stop and ask to take pictures of it because it was like perfect for like haunted house, haunted barn look. Had broken windows and the weathering, the gray weathering. It was an old style weather vane on the top. It was great. So strangers would just like stop and ask to take pictures, and they would gush about how beautiful it was there. And
Mhm.
in the next breath, they'd complain about the rain. And it took me a while
Yeah.
before I was old enough that I was like, you don't have one without the other.
Right. True.
So I could use a little more rain being in the desert, but it's okay.
And if you guys don't know where Cedro Woolley is, it's like literally in North Cascades. It's like one of the prettiest mountain ranges you could ever imagine. It's really cool.
Yeah.
See?
Pretty great.
That's cool.
It politically wouldn't
Now,
really
how far were
show.
you- Yeah. So how far were you from like Darrington?
Sorry?
How far were you from Darrington?
Oh,
Yeah.
God. We didn't go there very often. Isn't that right by Arlington?
It is, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to say 45 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So you were closer to the Tulip Festival.
Yeah, I was about 20 minutes from Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
but I never
I
went
like that.
People come from, I don't know, I guess all over the country to see the tulip fields, and I
Yeah.
don't think we ever went.
It's so crazy. And if you guys are not familiar with the Tulip Festival, it's like this huge event every year that happens, and you never know when these tulips are going to bloom. So it's kind of like you're marking it on the calendar, hoping and waiting. And it's the coolest thing. You feel like you're in a completely different country when you go see it. But
It's amazing.
it will take you 4 hours just to get down the highway because the traffic is ridiculous.
Yes, I was
Whoa.
driving to Bellingham, just a little further north, like a half an hour, to go to my sister's, and I happened to be driving on Saturday in April.
Yeah.
Bad time, and it took me probably about 15 minutes to get from one exit to the next. I'm like, what is going on? Totally forgetting it was Tulip Festival time.
Yep.
I thought, sheesh.
It is, yeah. So Bellingham is about 6 hours from me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I used to live in Sela, actually, which is closer to you.
Yeah. Good old seal.
For people that don't know Washington, that's right by Yakima. You've probably heard of Yakima.
Yakima's the armpit of Washington.
Yes, but I lived in Sela, not Yakima.
Yeah, it's 10 minutes from Yakima. You definitely lived close enough.
Yeah, stone's throw across the freeway.
Right. So how many kids do you have?
So I have 4 total, 3 at home. My daughter's 19, just recently moved to Boise. She's living with her friend and her friend's family, renting a room from them. And my boys are 16, 14, and 10. And at some point, it is entirely possible that you will hear the 10-year-old. We'll see how this goes.
Well, that's okay. I have a 7-year-old dog, and you'll probably hear her too.
Yeah, I originally scheduled this on a weekend. They were going to be at their dad's in Utah, but he works retail and things kind of got flip-flopped at the last minute. So that changed.
That's all right. That's okay. It's a family thing.
Family is kind of what I'm all about. So
Yeah. So what do you do for a living? I don't know if you can talk about that, but what can you do?
yeah, I can't tell you who I see, but
That's
I'm a
fine.
physical therapist assistant.
Okay.
So they see the therapist first for their initial, what we call an evaluation.
Okay.
And it says, okay, this seems like what the problem is, kind of develops their goals, and then says, here, hands them over to me, and I get to do all of the fun stuff.
Got it.
If you ask the patient, sometimes they call it the mean stuff, but
Mhm.
you get better. So
You get them moving.
It's like a mild form of torture,
yep,
which
they
can
say
be
stands for
kind
pain
of
and
enjoyable.
torture.
So you do the same thing that John does then, just on different parts of the body.
I try not to torture them too much, but
He works
Got
on
it.
the mind, I work on the body.
yeah.
Right. Like I said, different parts of the body.
Well, I'll be going through that here pretty soon, some physical therapy. So I'm here visiting my boys, and funny story, we decided to go do some mountain biking, and we went up to Park City to do some downhill mountain biking, and I ate it pretty hard, and I separated my shoulder. So I have an AC separation and a possible ligament tear. So it's a level 3 tear.
Oh, that means you're having surgery.
Yeah, so I have a bump right here where my bone's sticking out. But I can move my arm, so it's not bad. It's just painful. I mean, it's painful when I move, but yeah, it's gonna take a sports orthopedic surgeon to repair it. So
Oh, sounds like the wrong
Oh,
fun
snap.
this weekend.
yeah, well,
how many
sometimes
sad
I forget
stories?
how old I am, I'm like, man, I used to mountain bike like a crazy person 20 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
So I went a little too fast around a corner, and man, the bike got out of control. I went over the handlebars and landed shoulder first.
Oh, see,
How many sad stories start with I was out mountain biking and then it's usually not good.
oh man, one of the gals in my class, she was amazing, by the way. She had almost a photographic memory. She's just fascinating. But she had recently torn her PCL, so the back ligament on your knee. Mountain biking, like not too long before we started our program. And not bad enough that she needed surgery. It was pretty fine, but yeah, not great.
Yeah,
Mm.
those injuries are tough. My junior year in high school, I tore my MCL, and back then they didn't do surgery for that. You just had to be on crutches for 6 months. And
Yeah.
until I went to go
Oh,
kick
no.
the ball, and I literally had no motion, and I just hit the ground. I was like, something's wrong.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Okay. I won't get
Yeah.
on my soapbox. I'll just
I know, but yeah, they didn't do it. So every once in a while, it gives me a little bit of it lets me know it's there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the doctor tells me, like, he says, "Oh yeah, don't worry. People live with that little bump. It's just fine." He said, "You'll have some limited mobility, like above your up above your like." I'm like, so I can lift my arm to my ear, but I can't lift my arm to my ear on that side. He's like, "Oh, you'll be fine. You can live that the rest of your life." I'm like, no, I do too much sports with my job and all kinds of other things. I can't. He's like, oh, okay, I guess,
Well,
you
the
can get
thing about
surgery.
shoulder surgeries though is they're very delicate, and man, I've heard more of them going wrong than right.
Well, he said this is the easy one. Like an AC
Okay.
separation is the easy one. It's one ligament that holds that bone down,
Right.
but it's somehow
messed
it's
mine up
separated,
too.
so that's why the bone's up. And so when I first crashed in and I got up, I was like, oh, it was like my shoulder. And then I go, oh wait, that's a notch right there. That's a bone. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
no.
Oh,
I got a bump on my shoulder.
I'm like,
Like
that's
bumping
not
your head.
normal. I'm like feeling the other side going, oh yeah, that's definitely not normal.
that's-
But like a minute behind me was like the medic patrol. So he was like a minute behind.
Perfect.
He shows up. He's like, hey, you okay? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, did you hit your head? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I went over the handlebars. So
Oh,
it's
geez.
like,
You're wearing a
like,
helmet, right?
I was wearing a helmet. So he
Okay.
did the whole, like, I'm gonna give you 3 words to memorize and I'm gonna ask you in a couple of minutes. So yeah, I'm
I would fail
just as
that
dumb
test.
as I used to be. So
I
it's okay.
am much more gifted at getting hurt than all of you, so I'm a 2 ACL repair,
Both
Double.
knees or twice on the same?
both knees.
How's
So
that?
I've blown each out, and you'll love this, playing fat boy basketball at the church when they used to have carpeted floors. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, they
made
got
them
rid of them because they
carpeted.
kept hurting
So it
themselves.
was like the AstroTurf of gyms, and like, so I I like to cut and pivot a lot, and man,
Oh, no.
when you do that and it won't give, something's got to give. And
Yeah, they got rid of them because they did it for noise control. And because if people were playing in the gym, they can still have meetings going on in the rest of the building, and that's what they did it. So it's
I'm
noise
sure
control.
that church insurance was getting tagged for that hard.
Yeah,
but
so they're like, yeah, we probably should get rid of that stuff.
Yeah.
So Heidi, tell us, so are you dating anybody? Is there anybody special out there?
Nope. I've been officially divorced for a little over 5 years, but we separated over a year before that. So I've been, for all intents and purposes, on my own since January of 2015.
Okay.
Haven't gone on a date yet. Actually.
What?
Well, I mean,
that's like 6 years, no dates.
I live in Twin Falls.
Okay, there's no men in Twin Falls.
That's the problem.
I know at least a couple men in Twin Falls, and
there's men and there's men.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, so
It just occurred to me that sounded really snobbish. But I wasn't supposed to.
So you're saying,
I'm sure you'll date again soon.
or do you like men? Every minds want to know. Apparently John does because he's turning red.
What?
No, that's just the light, I think. I'm moving the light around.
So, you know how you've been to singles activities and it's
no
awkward? No.
Awkward.
Singles activities.
Like people are socially awkward, and it's not a huge thing, but you can just tell. Like,
I'm saying no because I agree with you. I get it.
oh, okay.
Well, I mean,
That's
if you
what twin is like.
awkward is like a guy coming up to you and saying, "The spirit just whispered to me that you're my next wife." If that's awkward, then
Okay,
yeah.
no, I haven't had anything like that.
I've been practicing this.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, real men don't do that, I don't think.
I would laugh in that person's face. It would just, I wouldn't be able to stop myself. No, I haven't had anything crazy happen. It's kind of an odd dynamic here in Twins. So if I go to singles activities, it's usually I either travel to Boise a couple hours or I've got friends in Pocatello that I do things with, which means I don't necessarily go very often compared to what I would if it was here in Twin, because, that's at least an hour and a half, not 2 hours, depending on where I go. But I've met some great people and I've made a lot of wonderful friends and I've learned, a ton about myself. And I think it's good actually that I didn't even want to date until, I wasn't even entertaining the idea of going on dates until probably a year or two ago. And that was like letting the idea sit in my head for a while.
Right.
That's where I was at. I was going to school and trying to just kind of get our family stabilized and kind of be able to deal with normal daily life without it blowing up in my face. At least every day. Because sometimes it still blows up in my face, but it's okay.
You have kids.
I wasn't interested in dating then. I was just like, I don't have time to even think about that. And my situation that I came out of wasn't certainly the most horrible I'd ever heard, but it was difficult enough that it took me some time to bounce back and make some changes in how I looked at things, make some changes in how I saw other people, and just stuff like that. Just some personal growth that I needed to do. I'm glad I didn't hop into dating really quickly. That would have been disastrous.
Yeah, whether we know it or not, we're hurt after something like that. I think some people deny it, go kind of shove it under and just trudge ahead. And, it's not to say that's never rewarded. But yeah, it just seems like it's better to just be honest with yourself and say, yeah, that got me good. And maybe I should lick my wounds for a while and, pray for healing.
Some salt in them.
Or put some salt in them. It hurts, but it is cleansing.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think I'm that brave. I avoid the salt.
Everybody, has a different timeline, for when they're ready. And
Yes.
whether or not you're dating during that timeline is sort of less important than are you ready, So
Yeah. I'm really good at being friendly and outgoing with people. The rest of it is a bit of a mystery still. And, it may stay that way. I might not remarry. And I mean, it's not really on tonight's particular topic, but that's something that in the last several months, I've had a lot of personal growth with in being okay with that. Like, that might be Heavenly Father's plan in that this life that doesn't happen. And I got to a place where I'm like, I can separate wanting to be remarried, or I shouldn't say separate. I can desire that, but I can be okay just being me.
right.
I can find fulfillment and happiness in my life.
Yeah, like most things that are healthy, it's a balance. I think, that I want it. I'm willing to pursue it to some degree, although not, like in a wild and crazy way. But at the same time, I'm willing to be at peace with where I'm at, though not complacent necessarily and kind of cynical, like I think some people get.
Yeah, so I attended so pretty much as soon as we separated, I started attending a support group that I went to for about a year, not a church one. It was something done here in the community. Was it a year? I don't know. It was a long time, but it was really amazing. It was not easy and not always pleasant, but I learned a lot. And it wasn't like, well, you'll probably relate to this, John. You've probably seen it. I mean, some support groups are like people go to bawl and whine and just dump and vent, and it's not really very productive. It's kind of a downer. I mean, and there were people that wanted to do that, but we had a facilitator, we had a workbook, we had homework. Like, this was a seriously proactive thing. And it did wonders for me. Like, I learned a lot, and I'll always be grateful for it. And that,
I did something kind of similar with that as well. And I feel like it helped me with my parenting as well.
yes.
It helped develop me into the person that I'm proud to be. But parenting, that was a good one.
Yeah, it's helped me just become a better me, which obviously is more beneficial to my kids. It's not like I got it all figured out in that year. I screw up all the time, but
Right.
it's another day.
Yeah.
As long as I still have tomorrow, which we don't ever necessarily know that we do, but
Yeah. Yeah. My daughter will come to me. She's like, can I just be mad? You come up with these stupid Dr. Philisms. Because I'm like, I don't know I'm saying that. And she's like, you're always like, there's always tomorrow. You can change your attitude for tomorrow. And she's like, I just want to be mad now. And I'm like, be mad. I don't care. My feelings.
yeah, I don't to sit in that place for very long.
I'm not either. Mm-hmm.
I learned probably a lot from that support group. I learned that I don't know how easy it would have been, but it probably wouldn't have been too difficult for me to decide to become bitter and decide. I mean, you hear the phrases, all men are yada, yada, yada. Well, that's never a fair statement.
It's not, yeah.
And most people don't actually believe that. So,
except for Twin Paul.
There are good men everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Well, and I'm not saying that the awkward men are not good men. They're just
they're not a match.
What she said about Twin Falls is there are men and there are men.
Oh,
that's the difference between.
Oh man, I'm never gonna live that statement down.
Oh, that's gonna become a meme, Heidi.
We're talking about red flags. That's my red flag. I remember that stuff.
Oh gosh, that's funny. Anyway, so I made a specific decision. It was kind of probably the first really big thing that I did as far as my self-awareness is I decided I don't want to be bitter. I don't want to go down that road where I let this really, really hard experience and our family falling apart color everything from here on out. And I thought, you know, I'm not going to do that to my kids, and I'm not going to do that to me. And it's not like I've never felt bitter or angry. Certainly not. But I learned to acknowledge that, you know, validate, okay, this is how I feel, but I don't live in that place for very long. And that's given me,
Well, it's not good for us to stay in that place for very long.
and it's given me power over my emotional state. I'm not giving that to anyone else.
I will say, like, for me, when I went through my situation, it's totally different, completely different. I was so relieved, and I remember that first night I was like, oh my gosh, I slept so good in my own home. I slept amazing. Because it was just so turmoil, and there was just so much anger and resentment between both of us, and it was not a good situation. But I stepped away from it, and I realized that I became a different person when I didn't have those emotions to fire me up, you know. And I know, like, I mean, I was able to just step back and say, okay, how can I better myself for my children and for me further? And
we are worth that. Even if we have no children, all the things are still worth it.
Absolutely.
More
And
people to be.
And for my future, you know. And there's so many people that just get stuck in that way of thinking when they left. And even now, like, I mean, I'm a different person I was even last year, or, you know, 3 years ago or 4 years ago. And I'm okay with that, you know, and I just like the direction I'm going. I know we're constantly evolving, we're constantly growing, and that's not a scary thing. But some people just get this thought process that growth is scary, and it's not a scary thing.
It's painful sometimes.
It can be.
And that's usually, I think, what scares us, is because we don't know how much it's going to hurt.
Right.
But it's always worth it in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you go too fast on a mountain bike, it hurts.
Right.
And
Well, that's just
learning
our
process.
I'm
It's
not
a
saying
learning
that's
process.
painful.
I think
already-
it's more like sore muscles.
I'm
when you
already
work
going
out.
through it in my mind, and I'm like, next time, Corey, you should go slow through those high bank turns.
Yeah, you ever see that meme where
Insight.
the woman is sleeping next to the man and she says he's probably thinking about other women, and then he's thinking about something. Corey's thinking about, I can't believe I wrecked on that bike.
Yeah, and it was the first run. I totally ruined the rest of my day. I
Ah,
had to go to the
really?
clinic and get x-rays. Man,
Oh, did you guys at least end up being able to do something fun, Corey?
oh yeah, we had fun. So I mean,
Good.
it's functional. I could still go out and do stuff, but
Corey's not gonna not have fun.
I'm gonna have fun whether my arm's in a sling or I just chop the thing off and put it away for a while.
Okay, Corey, we're not talking about your trauma here. We're talking about Heidi's trauma. Focus.
Yeah, this is not about you, Corey. Although
It's
I
okay.
kinda-
I can
I want
share
to
the
quit
hot
too.
seat.
That's no. That's one of my red flags I'm working on. Still in the spotlight.
So funny. For all the extrovertedness that I have, the limelight's not really my most comfortable place, but I mean, I'm okay with it. You can ask me whatever. I'll tell you if I don't want to answer.
Pineapple.
What's your favorite part of your job?
Feet.
Is that defeat? Or is it feet?
No, no, it's not my favorite, but it doesn't bother me either. My favorite part is when they come back in after they've, you know, turned that corner, that sometimes it takes weeks. Well, sometimes it takes months, but generally at least a few weeks. And they finally start seeing the benefits of the time and effort they've put in. And I get excited about progressing with them, and they get excited about, I mean, you hear about the teeny tiny things that they never thought about, like, oh my gosh, I can comb my hair on the other side of my head. Oh my gosh, I can bend all the way over to tie my shoes and it doesn't hurt anymore. I mean, stuff that if we haven't had to deal with, we don't even think about.
Right.
Mhm.
Those they might sound really silly, but those are huge things. For a guy to be able to reach behind his back and put on his belt without having pain. I mean, just stuff like that. Or
Yeah, that matters.
someone that, yeah, you don't want your pants falling down in the middle of the grocery store.
Right.
Or someone that, you know, wants to walk 3 miles a day for exercise with her friends and she hasn't been able to do that for 6 months because her hip hurts or whatever, you know, those are big deals. And I get to be one of the tools that helps people get back parts of their life that they've been missing. And I love that.
Yeah, and plus you're doing different work. Like, I mean, everyone knows
Yeah.
that I'm in dental. Well, most people know I'm in dental. So you're doing a different type of work where you're working
Same type of stuff.
team for their health. Whereas I'm just in someone's face going, how are you?
And they're like, hi.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're
But I
saying.
think that it matters if you can bite again, you know, that could come in handy.
Well, I
Yes.
thought of
For, like,
Terry.
eating
I
and
thought of
stuff like
Terry
that.
last week when I was getting my teeth cleaned last Wednesday, and the lady's like going through, and she's like, "Do you use electric toothbrush?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Which one?" I'm like, "The Sonicare," and she's like, "It really works. Keep using it."
Yes.
Maybe that's what I should get. I went like polar opposite. I went from, just took me a long time to develop really good dental habits. And then my last appointment, and I have been so diligent, and I have 2 stupid fillings, and I was so ticked off. I'm like, I brush and I floss, and I'm like, why is this happening? She said, actually, you might be brushing too hard, after she took a look at my gums. And I'm like, seriously? So I just swung the entire spectrum. That's how I live my
Take it
life.
easy. Take it easy.
I'm on
Well,
one
that's why
side.
I switched to electric, because I was doing the same thing with a manual toothbrush. I was like putting a lot of muscle behind it, and I was like, that's not good. So
And I didn't
so
know
now I
that
just
was-
have the Sonicare, and it does like all the sonic and the waves and it does all the cleaning. I just have to
So
rub it across
just
my teeth.
you need to start brushing with your left hand and your bad shoulder,
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and then you
like,
can't really.
ow, ow.
Lighten up, lighten up.
Advice, but that's terrible advice.
Oh, sorry. Well, you could call it kind of
Professionals
like
gonna-
you get physical therapy and your teeth brushed at the same time,
Yeah.
Maybe.
and you learn mindfulness at the same time. I can help you with that. So
You got it. 3 in 1, Corey.
I know. So let's switch over from dental work and
Please.
There-
he just
and
wanted to
let's
say
go
hi.
to mental work. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the topic at hand here, red flags. So the topic is interesting because it's like, know thyself, like become self-aware to the point of knowing like your own red flags. Is that what we were kind of going with, or?
Yeah, so Celeste and I were talking about this, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of, if I want to try and be the best partner in a relationship, I don't want to bring all of my baggage and dump it on someone else's doorstep. We're always going to have some because we're not perfect. So we have to be careful about the expectations we have and what a divorced partner, like, oh, well, they should have figured out all of that and they shouldn't have any problems. I'm not saying that. But I think that I want to be aware enough that I'm like, oh, I have some tendencies to do such and such. And I've learned that that's not a healthy way to either treat another person or treat myself, or it makes for an unhealthy dynamic in a relationship. And so I want to work on those. So it takes awareness and being able to take a hard look at ourselves in ways that are not comfortable. And I think that's probably the hardest part of it, is that we have to be willing to say, you could use a little buffing in that area. I mean, to ourselves.
That's
then-
similar to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to finish by saying, and then actually be willing to proactively start that process. Sorry, I'm trying to get in a spot where there's better light and it's not working. Because it's hard. It's hard and it's not usually fun and it's so not comfortable. But I like me better.
Right.
And that's where
I was just going to say that discomfort's something common to both physical therapy and mental and emotional therapy.
I have learned a lot from my training. I got to tell you, there are some pretty awesome principles. If it's a worthy thing to attain, it's going to be uncomfortable getting there.
Right.
And I think that self-awareness is probably the biggest thing that you can do to better yourself in everything, you know, as long as you're self-aware. And, you know, I appreciate my friends because they will tell me, oh, this is how you're coming across, or this is how you present yourself, especially when, I mean, I have a pretty quick wit, and I throw myself under the bus a lot. I'm comfortable with that. I have confidence, and that's why I'm comfortable doing that. But it's perceived differently to other people. And it's not that I'm like literally tearing myself down because I'm throwing myself a pity party. I'm the last person to throw myself that pity party. I mean, if there's popcorn involved, I'll show up, but I won't participate in that pity party. So
you might watch it with a little bit of amusement though, no?
Right. But I also am like one of those people that I can see it, I'll process it, and I'll be like, yeah, you know, there's some truth to this, but there's also not some truth to this. So I take that information and I'll sort it out in my brain, and I'll throw out the garbage, and I'll work on the stuff that is true. And being self-aware, I'm able to do that. But if you're not self-aware, how can you do that and recognize, okay, maybe I'm not coming across very humble, or maybe I'm telling people this is what's wrong with them, but yet I'm really the problem.
Like a projecting thing?
Correct.
Right. Yeah, I think, yeah, if we're not willing to look at ourselves and be like, you know, there's always improvement to be made, then we aren't going to see anything. And it's hard to see from the inside. That's the hard part. And it is valuable to have good, trustworthy people around us. But there's the grain of salt issue. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I tend to be kind of hard on myself. Usually the feedback I get from people that care about me is all the things that they think I'm doing right, which in my self-awareness, I've also learned to cut myself some slack on things. I've learned that too, but they also don't live with me. Which,
right.
That's where it all comes out, right?
So one of my things is that, like, when somebody tells me something, I'm just going to talk about my job, because my job is a very critical one. You can't please everybody. And you know, those personalities that you cannot please, you know, those people that they genuinely give you some good feedback. And those are the people that I sort out in my head. I'm like, okay, you know, you tell those people that you just can't please, I'm sorry, I'll do my best. I tried, you know, but those other people that give you that genuine feedback, you're like, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I'm aware of it next time. And so that next patient that I'm working on, I am fully aware of that. And it's not like you throw it away, but again, that awareness thing, you know, not a lot of people can see themselves with a magnifying glass, and they're not going, what did I contribute to this argument? What did I contribute to this? Now, there are some arguments that happen that you're like, this was just waiting. This is a ticking time bomb. You know, you're a sitting duck right now, and you are giving out all this criticism, but yet you don't want to give it back. So, or receive it. There are those situations, they're rare, but there's a lot of times that people just don't see their role in things at all.
Yeah, I learned, it was the therapist that we first started to see when we separated, and we had a protection order between him and the kids and me, but it allowed for exceptions, and counseling was one of them. And counseling together was not the right dynamic. I mean, going in at the same time, that wasn't gonna work. But I saw this therapist for a little while on my own, kind of after my ex filed for divorce and stuff like that. Which I'm wondering how many of you are sitting there surprised right now, because most people I find get surprised when they find out that I didn't actually file for divorce, and I'm not sure why. Is it just because it's so often in our culture that women do that and not men?
It's more common, but it's not like 90-10. It's more like 60-40.
Right. I did initiate the protection order, which, you know, obviously shunted things down that direction. But he said something that I couldn't even process at first, because I was still in kind of a victim mindset and I was defensive. What did he say? I can't remember his exact words, but he was talking about the principle of inviting behavior and how that's different than being responsible for someone else's behavior. And I couldn't see the difference. When he would say that, all I could hear was his anger episodes were my fault. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That's not something that a therapist would tell me. And so I struggled with that for a while. And I mean, it was long after I had been meeting with him, and I finally grew enough to understand. And I hope that my words make sense, because it's particular, it's different. I am not, hopefully this isn't like TMI. I'm not responsible that he threw the wastebasket into the wall. It's not my fault that he chose to do that. But it's also necessary for me to own how I approach someone, like, just because I need to be responsible for my behavior. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, I think, I mean, maybe one way I would say it is that, you know, and we could do this with any issue. I mean, it could be anything from, you know, something as hurtful as cheating and abuse to something as simple as, you know, toothpaste and, you know,
Right.
leaving doors open and stuff like that, putting the toilet seat down. And I think what it is that I'm responsible for the ways, you know, that I, whether wittingly or unwittingly, trigger other people. I need to adjust those things. If there are ways that I'm being rude or
insensitive.
caustic, yeah, or being hypersensitive, or all kinds of things that I could be, you know, those are things that I need to work on. What they
Yes.
do with it may not, that part isn't my responsibility, you know. And so, you know, someone could say, well, I cheated on you because you neglected the relationship and you weren't emotionally available to me. Okay. Going to an affair over that is unhealthy no matter what, you know.
Right.
Resorting to that. But what I do need to do as the partner is separate out how unhealthy the behavior was in response and say, did I emotionally neglect the relationship? You know, did I push him or her away? You know,
Right.
and if so, I'm responsible for that. You know, I need to not do that, you know, and that doesn't mean I deserve to get cheated on, for Pete's
Absolutely.
sake, nor does it mean that I deserve to have my toilet seat kept up or down. It's just that I can own my part in that, and I think that's healthy. And I think we can do that without blaming ourselves for the end result that the partner chose to do.
Yes, that was a separation I did not understand. My level of emotional maturity did not understand that. And that was unfortunate. There are lots of things I've learned about how to treat other people, especially when I'm frustrated. Because I didn't always do that very well. I don't know that I would say I'm like this so much now. I've made a lot of strides, but I have the natural tendency to be like mountain out of a molehill, like letting a small thing create way more contention than it will ever be worth.
Right.
And I actually started realizing that from my kids. My older ones were finally starting to get old enough that I don't know, they would say things or whatever so feedback that I was finally able to realize, oh, I've got an unhealthy dynamic here, and I'm putting a lot of pressure on my kids because of how I'm responding to stupid situations. Like, I don't know where I was. I came home and my son, what was he like? Maybe 9 or 10. He's going into his freshman year now. So this has been some time. And was like, Mom, you're going to be really mad at me. And I was like, okay, just give it to me straight. And it's just awful that this is how he thought. But he was like doing the dishes or making food or something, and he had dropped and broken a glass measuring bowl. Totally not important. In the grand scheme of things, not important. And I had been raising him in a way unknowingly, thank goodness I wasn't maliciously doing it on purpose, but it was still happening. But I was doing that in such a way that he thought, Mom is going to be mad at me, which I was probably teaching them a shame dynamic rather than a healthy guilt. Oh, I messed up. Let's fix this. And it was horrifying to me when I realized that about myself. I'm like, oh my gosh. It was awful. So nothing changes overnight, but I'm different now. I don't freak out over things because I realize I don't want them. I mean, things never were more important than people, but for some reason I would let my responses send that message.
Right.
And I thought, this is bad. I don't want to send this message. And so I needed to start changing that dynamic.
But I also think too, that goes back to self-awareness. Like, I mean, I hate to say this, like, how can you get to the point where you're self-aware? Like for me, I mean, I jumped right into therapy right away. In fact, I actually did therapy before I decided to divorce my husband, because I wanted to be able to forgive him, and I wanted to be able to understand what was going on. A lot of people don't do that. So creating that self-aware where you I don't want to say self-diagnosing because it's kind of, one of those things, but I think if you are self-aware, you can see those issues or those problems that you are carrying forward. How do you create that self-awareness? I mean,
I think that being proactive, sorry.
Oh, as I say, is it about timing? Is it about, the person seeking help? Is it beyond that? Is it being able to trust your friends? Like, who do you trust? Who do you don't trust? Like, there's just so many questions. This topic is just wide and it's big. It's got endless opportunities and there's no right or wrong.
Well, and we can run into a lot of pitfalls trying to pick our way through it. Like right. You guys were mentioning earlier, we were talking about the difference between self-awareness and I don't remember the term used, but
self-criticism.
Yeah, self-criticism. And there's a difference there to me. Like I'm about analysis. I want to.
Right, sorry.
No, you're good.
There's people too that literally leave their divorce and they think they did everything wrong. And they're not, there's two people involved. And they're not saying that other person did anything wrong, that they are the problem. They're the ones that created everything. And that's so wrong because there was two people that made a choice and there was a reaction, an action and a reaction. And it was just playing off of each other.
I think
or vice versa.
I think very often the people most ashamed are probably less culpable than the ones who aren't.
Yes.
Yes. And I have a question that I ask clients sometimes when they come and tell me, my kids or my husband or wife or, these people don't tell me the truth. They're always hiding from me, and the first question I ask is, how well do you handle hard truth when you hear it?
Yeah.
Meaning if every time they come to you in a moment of vulnerability, no matter how hard what they have to say is, do you punish them for that? Do you punish them for being real with you? And if so, I don't absolve them of the responsibility of being truthful. That's still on them. If I'm doing a therapy session with them, I'm saying, hey, why do you feel like you're not trusted? Yeah, it's because you don't tell the truth. You're not open. But with the person who doesn't get told the truth, usually there's some sort of dynamic where they are punishing that truth somehow, and whether it is that they're just super hypersensitive, or they're super angry, or they retaliate. And the thing of it is, they're usually confessing something that happened months ago, or at least weeks ago, maybe even years ago. And but we're going to beat them up now when they've started to find themselves and they're getting healthier and they realize I need to be more vulnerable with my spouse. And that's when we hammer them, and it's just like, wow, if we really thought about half the crap we do and our role in the dynamic, and that doesn't justify anything wrong someone else does to us, but we're doing a dance, people. We're doing a dance. And if you think you're not in the dance and that you're not contributing to that death dance that's going on in a relationship, you're just going to repeat your side of the dance in the next relationship.
So
Yes.
it's kind of on what John was saying too. I know, like, when I had found out that my husband had multiple affairs, and I literally emotionally blocked myself out from it completely. And my therapist said, "What did you do to contribute to his affair?" And he said,
Tough.
I realized then I didn't love him. That was the hardest thing that I could absolutely admit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was a hard day, I'm sure.
No, it was actually quite easy because I was actually being honest with myself at that point.
It sounds like the therapist knew you were at that point where you were ready to hear that. If he or she had started with that question at the beginning of your healing, it would have been, okay, you're fired.
Yeah. It didn't take long though. I think I knew it, but the problem is I just never admitted it. And so, yeah, I contributed, a lot to it because I didn't show that I loved him or cared or anything.
And that didn't justify, there's no justification for how he handled that and where he went with that.
Right.
But I agree that I think sometimes the supposedly aggrieved spouse will very often just say it's all his or her fault. I did all that I could. And, listen, I may have only been 10 or 20% of the problem, but to pretend I was zero.
Yeah.
Not fair.
Boy, that's a stretch, and like I tell people, the less culpability you have, the less power you have to change it. Meaning that if I had nothing to do with the problem, I have no power in the solution necessarily. My power in the solution is to own my part of the problem.
Yeah. And I had every reason to just blame him.
Right.
I'm not going to.
It would be easy to do that.
Yeah, it's not just him. Now I chose not to have an affair. He did. And that's I wanted to be able to sleep at night. And I wanted to be able to be honest with my kids, So.
Right.
Sorry. Somebody in the chat was saying, wait, did Corey change? And I totally didn't pick up on it if you did.
I did not change.
Okay.
He's thinking about his shoulder. He'll get back.
Yeah,
in
you're
the
quiet
game.
over there, Corey.
I'm now on the left, somebody said. Oh, you know what?
I do kind of see a bump on the horizon there. A little.
Yeah, there's a bump right there. You can see it. Right there.
It's so big.
It's a big bump. It's a scary bump. It gives me kind of the creeps.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me jump in real quick. So for me, the topic is more about getting to know myself. Because when I went to therapy, the marriage counselor ended up being my therapist, because she kind of spotted the the borderline personality disorder. And then my spouse didn't want to participate anymore in any therapy or any joint therapy. So the therapist said, why don't you stick around with me? Because, you know, I need to work with you on kind of like unscrewing your head, because she said basically being 22 years married to somebody like that, it's like, you know, you kind of get brainwashed. You kind of think that that's what normal life is. Like all the red flags that that normal people would see, and I wasn't seeing. And so she needed to help point that out to me again.
And they'll leave you feeling like you're the only problem. You know,
yeah, I mean, I actually showed up, and I mean,
after a while you start to believe it.
Yeah, the funniest thing is, like, I remember what in therapy, we went together, and then we did this exercise where we write a letter to each other. And then, you know, in the letter, we spell out all the nasty, horrible things that happen in our relationship. We just get all the emotions out. We write it to each other, but we give it to the therapist, and the therapist is the only one that reads it. Well, after all that was said and done, the therapist sits down with me and she's like, so what do you know about borderline personality disorder, Corey? And I said, is that what I have? And she starts laughing. And
I have seen that so many times.
What was that?
I have seen that so many times where the spouse that I'm trying to explain that their spouse is dealing with it, they'll be like, am I that? And in saying that,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, no, you know, the fact that you would even say, could I be narcissistic or could I be borderline?
Yeah.
You're probably not.
Well, that's what she said. She said, she goes, absolutely not. I said, well, the reason I'm here is because my ex keeps telling me, or, you know, my wife keeps telling me that I'm a narcissist. And if I am, I need to fix it. And so she starts laughing again. And she's like, no, you would not be asking to be fixed if you were a narcissist. You would not be in this room, like, telling me that you might be a narcissist. She's like, no. So it was really weird how screwed up my head was. Like, my head was so screwed up that she said that if after your divorce, she goes, if I don't help you walk through recognizing the red flags and pointing out all of your mistakes, all the things that are inside you that's going to point you in the wrong direction, she goes, you will marry another one. You will find one and you will marry another one.
That'll get you.
Yeah,
and you'll learn things you could never learn in graduate school, you know, or reading all the textbooks there are. You know, there's something about life experience.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it was funny because she would tell me, yeah, she would tell me, like, so some of the red flags that she said was, she's like, you can't save or rescue everybody. She says when you meet somebody who wants to create drama and get you to engage in the drama and then soothe them, that's like a red flag. And then she pointed out many other flags that, you know, she even went back all the way back to my dating of my ex and saying, so when you were dating, what did you see? Did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see this? And I'm like, yep, saw it. Yep, saw it. Yep, saw it. She goes, yep, but you still married her.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously I had some self-reflection. I had to look at myself and say, you know, I need to work on recognizing what the triggers are in me, because, you know, it's funny because I jokingly say this, but it is so true. It seems like the really, really awesome, cool, normal women that I meet, they're not interested in me. Like, I'm either too boring for them or I'm just not their type or whatever it is. And then the women that are like really beautiful, but crazy as heck, they chase after me, they call me, they text me, they're like, and I'm like, what is happening? Why can't I just date that normal woman that won't date me?
Let the love bombing begin. Yeah.
You have to get rid of that note on your back.
You're imagining.
Yeah, there's something that's like, I must be putting out an aura that says, if you are personality disordered, come see me.
Get a tattoo on your head.
Yeah, I'm totally into like the total personality disorder.
No narc
come
zone,
see me.
You know, or something like that.
They're all in a room and they're like, I smell Corey.
Yep, they're like, oh, there's my victim right there.
Oh my gosh.
Or just get a cross and some garlic tattoo on there.
Yeah, it's like a predator. It's like the lion looking at the whole crowd of men, and they're like, There he is. That's my target right there. And then they just run me down.
But Corey, I think you're right. I think, when you think about, relationships with people who are troubled or toxic, or, I won't limit it just to personality disorders. There's all kinds of toxicity. And it's in all of us to one degree or another. But I think we are part of the dance. Why do I just blow through these red flags? I'll be honest with you. When I've blown through red flags, it's because I'm selfish. I want some of the cool perks that come with being with that toxic person. And I want them so bad, I'm willing to overlook the crap they're going to put me through,
Oh, yeah.
and then I'm going to get shocked and like, oh, I can't believe you hurt me so. And it's, stop it. Stop that.
Yeah, well,
man.
there is a saying that guys
I
have.
was totally
There is a
down
saying
for
that
it.
guys have. Crazy. Sometimes crazy can be fun. Just don't marry it.
See, I think I'm on the
I
other
think crazy
end.
can be
I think
fun
I'm
in
too
dudes too,
boring.
but yeah.
I need to mute and stop my video for a second. Just kidding.
That's okay.
I
Kind
totally
of the
get it.
sound of the dog, right?
Isn't that okay? So correct me if I'm wrong, John. Isn't like, okay, I heard in my therapy it was, which I didn't understand because my ex was so far from like what my family was like just completely different. But they said, the therapist said that you have a tendency to go with what you know. Now, that being said, I realized that my dad had his shortcomings, and he's not borderline personality disorder, but he had his shortcomings where I was like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, I can do this.
Yeah. I dealt with my dad. This isn't bad.
Right.
Oh,
My dad. This is so easy.
Yeah, because I dealt with this toxic person before, I can deal with this one. But the thing we got to remember is the emotions of actually living with someone day to day, raising children with them, paying bills together with them, having sex with them. Hopefully we didn't do any of these things with our parents, and when you add all of those emotional things into the mix, it's just like, hey, I don't care what you did with your dad as far as being able to handle his toxic personality. You ain't seen nothing yet,
Yeah. And it's
And
a
quite
different
honestly,
relationship, like you said.
Yeah, he's gonna eat you for lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
If you go into that cocky,
Yeah, that
and
was
listen,
kinda-
I got to be careful because I could sit here in my mind and say, ooh, well, I got all this book learning and I have letters behind my name and I'm a therapist and I have all this experience. So I can just go, dude, when it comes to love, shut up. You ain't got nothing.
Yeah.
You are, as in fact, believing that I'm talking to me in the mirror right now. Believing that I somehow am immune to being hurt and taken advantage of by toxic people, dude, that in and of itself is toxic. That is a toxic mentality, a mindset. And then when it goes south later on, I got to look in the mirror and just say, dude, you told yourself a story, and it was a good one. It was a doozy, but it was a total myth. You're making it up as you were going along, man.
Oh, and then we get slapped back into reality and we're like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
she
what's
kisses
funny
me
is that
so
my
well.
journey-
Let's do this.
Yeah, like my journey was like a
like,
roller
oops.
coaster ride. Like the therapist told me, she goes, Corey, it's like you're a drug addict with your spouse, because when my spouse was on her game, like when she was not in a dark place, like she was like the most amazing person you'd ever meet. Like she was on it. Like she was like, she was like every girl that any guy would ever think he wanted to be with, she could be that.
No
and
doubt.
more. And so, and because, and not to bring up last week's topic, but I do like sex. Sex is a good thing. And she knew that. And that was her reward. So when she came out of her dark place and put me through hell, then when she got to her high peak, man, like the romance and the sex and like everything was awesome. And, just blow your mind. And it reminded me of that Glenn Close movie, with, she was like on her
Fatal
game.
Attraction.
Yeah, Fatal Attraction. When he met her, she was on her game. Like
No
she
doubt.
was like every man's dream. And then she rocked his world. And then when he went to leave her and abandoned her, her perceived abandonment, she went to the dark place and cut her wrists and ripped his shirt and scratched his face and just like, she
Yeah,
wanted to kill
and
herself.
cheated on
And
him, and then said, it's your fault. And yeah,
Oh my gosh.
I like, it's like heroin. I mean, most of my career has been with drug addicts, probably about half to 60% of my career, and I've never used a substance, and yet felt like an affinity for them. I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood where they all grew up, kind of thing, and so, but anyway, one of the things that they would tell me is what it felt like coming off of heroin. And they would also tell me what it was like going on heroin. And heroin just sounds like like a lot of people say, better than sex cake. And I just say, there is no cake better than sex. Not good sex anyway. But heroin sounds like it's actually better than sex. It is like a euphoria that is hard to describe. They said you literally feel like your body is filled with like the spirit of God and all the love in the world combined, but a few hours later you're hurting, and if you keep that cycle going, there's a phrase I'll never forget. There came a time when I didn't take it to feel good. I took it to not feel bad.
Yep.
And at that point you are a total slave. And when I say feel bad, just to give you one of the symptoms of heroin withdrawal, how would you like it to feel like your bones are on fire? The pain is so wretched, and there is nowhere for you to jump into a pool of water to put it out. It is just, and this goes on for 2-3 days or beyond that.
Pass out.
And so when I look back on some of my relationships, and I look at a lot of the toxic relationships I deal with, people are totally addicted like that. And so they're not taking it to feel good anymore. They're taking it to not feel bad.
Yeah,
It's
that
just
was
like,
my
help
relationship.
me not feel bad, and
Yeah, that was mine. And I was working on that roller coaster, but the therapist had told me, you've got to get off that roller coaster. And one of the things that she had told me, which I always remembered, she's like, when you meet a normal woman, Corey, to you, she will seem boring. To the rest of the world, she's awesome. But to you, because she's not all over the place, she's not like super, super high superstar, and she's not the super low, evil, dark person. And you're riding that roller coaster again. She is just right down the middle, and you're like,
she's kind of up and down, but it's more like this instead of.
And there's no drama. So you're like, she's like, you don't see her as exciting, so you don't want to date her. And so I always remembered that. And when I meet somebody and I date them, I had to remind myself, when my brain and my body says, ugh, this person's not exciting, I'm like, whoa, time out. Are you referring to like what your life was when you were married? Or are you referring to what you want to have going forward? And so I think back to the topic, knowing myself and what my weaknesses are based on my past relationships, then I need to recognize when my body says, I'm not interested in her, she's kind of boring. I have to be like, no, Corey, she's probably normal. And I probably should go forward with that person.
Well, what I would add to that what I think is great advice is, if you love a normal woman, and that you could just as easily say a normal man or woman, they are every bit as capable of those highs that you had with the toxic person. And you don't ever have to worry about going to the depths with them.
Well, if I can get a boring woman who's really, really rocks my world in the sack, that'd be awesome.
That's a different podcast, Corey.
Yeah.
Stay focused.
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm sure there's things we can do to
It's
help
like
them
boring
with
could
that.
be boring.
Right.
I don't know what I just signed up for. Jeez.
I think a good
Just
healthy
have
woman
boring
can
in the
be-
right way.
Boring in the right way. Yeah.
That's so funny.
So I was gonna say something, like Corey was saying something about how his ex was like just all over the place, and mine was as well. And what I did, just a proactive thing for myself, I wasn't even instructed to do this, but I just thought, okay, if it ever comes up, because one of the arguments that my ex and I would have all the time was I would just be like, I feel like I can't do anything right. And, you know, and you're always all over the place. You're angry, you're mad, you're like spitting tacks for no reason, or you're just in the garage doing whatever you want. And again, I'm walking on eggshells. So I did a calendar and I marked down the days. I had 2 different symbols that I used. So I did a star for the good days and I did a question mark for the bad days. And I did this calendar and I marked all the bad days and all the good days. It was kind of my version of a pro-con list. This is when I was starting to go through my reasoning of leaving him. And I started marking it. And I went through that calendar one year and I could not tell you how many good days we had because there were so little of them. And to me, I felt like looking back, I was like, well, this isn't so bad. We get like 2 good weeks a month. And that wasn't even true. It was very, very few good days, period, in the entire year.
Mhm.
And what am I doing to myself? I'm digging myself an early grave here.
And what that does is it creates a fear response in us, the partner. And then here's the dirty little secret to therapy is we tend to do the opposite of what would work in the relationship. And it's almost like, you know, for example, if my fear response is to run away, there's probably a lot of times when I should actually engage more rather than less. If my go-to is to engage more, there are probably a lot of times when I need to give space and like, you know, put some distance and allow people to kind of recover and come back. And I think that's the biggest mistake we make is we go with what our fear response tells us to do instead of what our higher self, sort of like our spirit would tell us to do.
Well, and I see that, and I did it for myself. I mean, I was already well out the door as it was. I did it for myself to see actually how many good days we had.
Well, and let me clarify, if someone is in that 10 to 15% of people who are mentally ill, actively addicted, or have a personality disorder or have the traits that are really toxic, there's really nothing you're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, let's just be honest. There's nothing you're going to do that's going to turn the tide for good.
Right.
You know, the only thing I would say is not operating from my fear response, at least gives me the chance to leave knowing I truly did everything I could. Correct. You know, and that it really was the madness that they couldn't overcome that was the biggest contributor.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting that you said that, John. That's actually one of the things I learned how to do. Because I'm a communicator. I'm a verbal person. I hate having people mad at me. And so like an argument with no resolution, oh, that just eats me up. I hate it. Whoops, sorry. And so
which tends toward anxious attachment, meaning you're anxious attachment, where you're going to be pursuing, let's fix this, let's make it okay, let's be okay, you know. And typically, even if you're with someone secure, they're going to drift into avoidance in response to that. And then we're just going to create this cycle that's just going to spin totally out of control. So
oh my gosh, that's kind of a perfect description.
Well, there you go.
I was thinking that because like I have a friend that does that to me sometimes, and I'm like,
chill. Yeah, friends, parents, kids, we can all do it. So.
Or my mom will do it to me too. Like she'll call me, and if I swipe decline, swipe decline, she'll call my daughter. Is your mom mad at me? Is she mad? Is she mad?
Oh,
I have to text her, and I'm like, Mom, I'm busy. I'll call you back.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, more from I was thinking more from the perspective, like, I don't know, they argued about something or whatever, and like he would want to like not address it at all, and I'd be like, we can't just leave this, and really neither of those are healthy. You have to have an in between. And I learned how to recognize, okay, he's someone that needs some time to process before we discuss this. Because I would just want to be like bull in the china shop. Let's get this out of the way. Let's get some,
Mhm.
and
And
let's
then it will be
this.
solved forever if we just talk about it for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I got married when I was 20, so
Or if we ignore it and pretend it never happened. Both of them, you're right. Both are ridiculous notions.
right. And so what I started doing was, okay, I can't remember what he would say. He's like, I don't want to talk about this right now, or I don't remember. He'd say something and I would clue into that. I'd be like, okay, I can see you want some time to think about it. When can I'd like to set a time when we come back and talk about this, because that is really important. Because unfortunately, I mean, he was someone that kind of did need some processing time, which is not bad. But he would also never circle back around to actually address it. And so I would ask for that specific commitment, and well, that never really went well. But I at least learned to recognize, okay, not everyone functions like I do, and that's okay. And it just was funny that you were describing that, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I used to be.
That is the common pattern that we see in almost all couples there. I would say 95% of couples, somebody, and I would say probably, I would guess 70-30, 80-20, more women are anxiously attached and more men are avoidantly attached.
That would
But
probably,
there's that 20 or 30% of couples where it's the guy that's pursuing, and the woman's withdrawing and pulling away, and yeah. So
I always give myself the
Tim.
24-hour rule. Like if I'm angry or I'm upset, even with my kids, I always give myself the 24-hour rule. And I allow myself 24 hours to figure out if it's fact or emotion led, or what is causing my irritation. But I will go to my kids and I'll say, give me a night, give me a day. I'm not upset at you. I just need to figure out, what is the real issue. Because if I say, oh, the dishwasher irritated me, is it really that? Or is it the fact that for the last year, he hasn't been unloading the dishwasher, doing his whole thing. So it's nice for me when I adopted that rule. And I don't know, John can totally correct me. I could be so off base right now, but
I'm cool with it so far.
It's
as long
nice.
as you're cool with it.
Yeah.
Hey, in the end, whatever works.
Right.
It's
For me to be able to just say, okay, I can talk about this reasonably, and I know what the issue is. My issue is with it, and I can go to them, and it's their job or their responsibility to take that information and do what they feel need to do. Right. So
I think as long as we're communicating what we're doing and letting people know, I'm going to have to really think about that. And then we keep our promises, like if I say, hey, in the next 24 hours, we're going to talk about this.
right.
I think it's really important. Of course, these are conversations healthy, mature adults have.
Yeah. There are times like I go 24 hours and I wake up that morning and I'm like, I was totally overreacting this. And I will literally right then and there, and I will not text it. I will not call it. I will face-to-face say it. I am really sorry. I just completely overreacted.
I do the same thing with emails. So I get really worked up with like really stupid emails like at work. And I just want to write back like, you idiot moron, right? So I do write it in a Word document.
And moron.
In a Word document.
Say, careful.
I just get all of my emotions out in a Word document, and then I go home. And then I come back in the morning and I look at my Word document. I'm like, holy crap, Corey, you're an idiot.
Yeah. I'm so glad we didn't send that.
I'm so glad I didn't fire that one off. But it was actually cleansing to get that off my chest. Like I was like inside, I was so upset about this idiot response that I wanted to respond to the idiot response with my own idiot response. So I'm like, okay, I need to write this and sit on it for a day and then come back. And I swear 9 times out of 10, I'm not firing that email off.
Well, and I think sometimes too, especially with written word, like we put our own emotions, like what we're feeling at that time in there, and that's not necessarily fair. So like
No.
if there's a misunderstanding or I'm misunderstanding what they're trying to say, I just call them. I'm like, hey, so what did you mean by that? You know,
Yeah,
or
I do that too now.
and you're like, oh my gosh, I was so emotional. I don't want to admit it. I was being a girl.
Oh, that's
So-
funny. I
So
have.
let me do a round robin really quick with you guys. What is your biggest red flag for you?
Oh, Corey.
Come
Everyone-
on, start
Okay,
with Heidi.
if you're gonna ask that, let's ask, what's your biggest red flag from the other person, and what's the one thing the red flag you don't like in yourself, that you want to avoid in yourself?
There you go.
Okay.
I think for me, the thing that I try about myself to improve the most is that I don't, well, it's not like I've practiced this recently, so I have to think.
Terry, you're up.
Yeah, sorry.
He's
What?
passing.
I don't think on the spot.
Okay. So the one thing that I see in myself that I want to improve on is that I don't make my needs known. And I'm a pleaser and I am changing that. So shock.
So what
What
about
is the
other
red
people? What
flag
about
you
men
don't
you
like?
date? What's the big
Wait, you
red
two
flag?
people are asking questions.
I was asking, what's the red flag in men you date?
The red flag and then I date.
The ones you're trying to avoid when you meet a man, like when you see the red flag, you run.
Like the
What's-
top
Oh.
thing
So
that
that's the
turns you off,
question.
basically.
What's the biggest red flag that is your immediate no-go with a man, and what's the one in you that you want to overcome?
Well, the one I want to overcome, I already said.
Right. And so what is it in other men, in men?
It's situational. Like it really just depends. Each person has, I mean, I don't know. It sounds so judging for me to say this.
We're talking about a proverbial man, not anyone in particular.
I know. I'm trying to
I'm
think,
sure the
like,
proverbial man
Like
will
if the
not be
man did
offended.
this to you, like if the man did this and triggers you, it's what triggers you, Terry. So like,
Okay, I'm up. So
this is
Take
a
away
lot
that.
better than we
we'll
thought.
count that as a pass and we'll come back to you. No, go
Okay.
ahead if you have it in your mind, but
I don't. Go ahead.
okay. I have had like, post-divorce 2.5 years, and I have become really clear on, what is it, the one thing I will not abide in any relationship. And I'm having to choose between two. One is deception. Okay. Meaning you're not real. You're telling me one thing and talking behind my back, saying another. But the bigger one, I think, is being indifferent or cruel to people, or not necessarily cruel, just mean. So if there's any kind of nasty bone in her body, it's just, I'm checking out from like if she's rude to a waiter or a waitress, or she's talking smack about one of her kids, or
Mean girls.
and I always feel like if you're doing that about them, you'll do it about me someday.
Yeah.
that's
You don't want to
right.
date mean girls.
No,
Okay, I have
I
it.
do not want to date mean girls.
Yeah.
Bad girls I'm still working on, but mean girls, absolutely not. No, I'm just kidding.
have
Only
it.
bad in a good way, right?
All right. What's your red flag? in you?
Okay, so the one I definitely want to avoid, a close one was the people pleaser thing, but I feel like I've really purged that out of myself in a lot of ways. But I would say another one was the overreacting stuff. That's something I've had to work on in the past. But the big one for me now, I think is, see, now I'm going to get, I had it in my mind and now I got the hiccups.
But I have mine
Pass.
now. so I
Okay,
can
well,
say
pass
mine.
the
Go
Corey.
ahead and
Okay.
go, Terry, and then I'll tell
Okay.
mine.
So mine is clear disrespect. Clear disrespect for myself, my family, anyone I'm close to.
Amen.
Disrespect.
Mm,
Can't do it.
right.
So I'm ready, or Corey can go.
I'll go because I'll forget then.
Oh,
What
So
I
for
did.
me,
What?
inside, I guess from my personal, I'm kind of along the lines of Terry. I probably have two. So like the overreacting because I get a little sensitive about criticism. So sometimes I wonder if like comments or stuff, I'm
He
like, oh, are they
cries.
criticizing me? Or is there something about me they don't like? And so I get a little sensitive to that. So I can tend to overreact. So I work on that. Not that I overreact where I throw trash cans against the wall, but it's more like I just, I just get insecure, I think. And so I overreact, like, what is it? What am I doing wrong? And then the other one is for myself is the people pleaser. I think that's why I keep running into like the borderlines and the narcissists is because
Yeah.
I kind of feed into them. So I have worked really hard to recognize that in myself, not being that, and when I become a people pleaser, I also become an ignorer of myself. So I put everything that bothers me under the rug and just please them. Like whatever they say, okay, I'm a
Mhm.
jerk, I'm a bad guy, I'm a terrible husband. You're right. I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Right. And so I don't, that's a bad thing to be that kind of a person too. And then on the flip side, when I see one thing for me that's really hard for me is that my ex was one of those types of women that she always had guy friends, and she always admitted, like, I have more guy friends than girlfriends, and I don't get along with women, but I get along with men, right? And she always had guy friends, and it didn't bother me until like whoa, you had 3 affairs. Well, then maybe now it bothers me. So I have dated women where that's happened, where they've said, oh, I have a lot of guy friends, and when I travel we get together and have lunch, and they're just colleagues, they're just friends. And I think that makes me a little uneasy a little bit. So when I hear the comment, oh, I have a lot of guy friends, but not a lot of girlfriends, it's tend to be a little red flag for me, I think. But
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me.
That extreme is strange. It's not, I don't think it's unusual to have friends of another gender, but I think it's weird to be like, oh, I can't get along with that gender. Like that is an unhealthy thing.
Yeah, I kind of like when they have friends on both sides, both genders, like to me, that's a
Yeah.
healthy sign. And when they have really clear boundaries with the opposite sex.
Yeah, that's healthy.
But
Right.
I thought of the one I want to look out for in myself, and that's emotional stability. And that kind of goes along with the idea of overreacting. I do not ever again want to allow someone else and what they do or don't do to be in control of how I am internally. And so I would say my biggest focus over the last year has been, I am not going to get jacked around by life events or by people anymore. If I go to a place emotionally, I'm going to go there because I choose that. If I notice myself going, if they're having an effect on me that's toxic, where I notice myself going someplace I don't want to go, one of two things needs to happen. I either need to pull it together or I need to get the hell away from them. And so what I would say to anyone who wants to be in my circle is don't ever put me in the position where in order to protect my emotional well-being, I have to distance from you. Because as soon as that happens, you're off the dating list. There will never be there may be a friendship, like a distant friendship, but there won't likely be a romantic relationship ever.
When you can't even have an intimate friendship with someone, like someone
Right.
that's not a safe person.
Yeah.
So,
and that includes things like, talking behind my back or saying, like, being manipulative, saying things that are passive aggressive, things like that. I will pick up on them so fast.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happens, I don't care how beautiful or hot you look, all of a sudden it's like this. Speaking of filters, Terry, it's like an ugly filter will come between me and you, and I'll look at you and go, oh, yay.
No, John, I'm the same way. Like I'm exactly what you're talking about. I definitely am super sensitive to that. Like, when I see it, it makes me just, yeah, I don't want to deal with it when I start seeing that.
I mean, there are pictures to this day of certain people in my life, both men and women. And I see their picture regardless of how they look. I see their picture and it turns my stomach. Like I will literally see that image. And the sad part of that is, I don't doubt for a minute that some of them have changed, that some of them could actually have found that beautiful part of themselves, and that's come out at this point. So I'm not saying I would write someone off forever, because people do change. You know, the atonement is real. But until that day comes, I see those images, and it's just kind of like, there's like a little radar in me that just says, keep your distance. Don't let them create fear in you, but at the same time, don't let them into your life either.
Well, John,
Right.
I have to admit something. So Corey and I were talking behind your back today because we were wondering when you were going to actually join us.
You know what? Some talking behind my back is fine.
Oh, okay. I'm glad we cleared that.
Yeah.
There's no talking in front of his back.
Yeah,
Well,
we were
no,
just
no,
like,
no.
we are just like, is
I-
John in a different time zone? Did he not change his clocks?
I was like, what the heck?
Well, it's not like I originally planned on being here, you know, so,
That's
but,
true. Thanks,
That's
Monica.
true.
no, I think it matters what we say. You know, listen, there are people who talk behind my back and say what a great guy he is, and like, I'm so glad that I got to know him and that kind of stuff. You can
I
do,
did roll my
I'm cool
eyes
with
though.
that.
But I did roll my eyes though when I said it.
Yeah, I think I'll be okay.
Okay.
I'll still let you stay in my life, Terry.
Okay.
So,
Well, I think
Okay,
we're
so-
at the point. Oh, so Heidi, do you have your comment?
I do. And it didn't take me actually this long. Sorry, I just don't like, on the spot, have it come to me.
Right. Welcome to my life.
I would say that for myself, and I've improved a ton with this, I'm much more even keel. I just don't do it naturally. And I've noticed that I've spent a lot of my life like between the polar opposites of aggressive and permissive behavior. And when I'm trying to hit the middle of where you're being assertive, where it's healthy. And so my goal is to just get better and better with that, and not, I just feel like I've spent a lot of years in my early adulthood bouncing back and forth over that line that I'm trying to hit. But I'm a lot better.
like if you can hover sort of in that balanced place
Yes,
between the two extremes.
that would be nice. I mean,
Yeah,
I do.
that's the
I'm
sweet
pretty,
spot.
yeah, I don't like flip out on my kids or anything anymore and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would say in someone else, a big thing for me is consistency, and especially between words and actions. I tell my kids this a lot. I say, if your actions and your words don't match, your words will mean nothing. I mean, that might sound kind of harsh, maybe not nothing. There might be good intentions there, but really, if I have to decide which one I'm going to make decisions about, I'm going to go with the actions, and I want someone where they match. I don't have any interest in someone that isn't trying to walk their talk.
Mhm.
Well,
So
then
So they
I'm
have
glad I
integrity.
never- Yeah, I'm glad I never. I'm gonna
Yeah.
run 10 miles tonight and I only run 5 because that happens a lot. Just saying.
Well, right, yeah. I'm not asking for someone to be perfect and to never screw up. That's not what I mean.
I know what you mean. I just being me.
Yeah, I just want someone's manner to be consistent. Like I was in a relationship where when he was happy, things were easy. And when the chips were down, I knew who was going to come first. And it made it really hard for me to know that things were very changeable, like based on someone's emotional feelings in the moment. That's not a roller coaster I'm ever interested in setting foot near again.
Yeah, that's part of that toxicity, that there's really not much you can do, you know, that no matter what we did or didn't do, that's
Yeah,
not
I mean,
okay.
if that other person doesn't want to change, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But anyway,
So if
I
anybody
still
has
do mine, I guess.
questions. Yeah, if anybody has questions, you can raise your hand. I don't know how to do it. I mean, but
You can do I think it's Alt and Y will raise the hand like that.
Yes. Corey has a
And
question.
I think it's like Option or on the Macintosh, but I think it might be Option Y will get the hand to come up.
Have one person. Do you put your hand down? Who was that? No? Somebody trying it
My
out.
son came
I
in.
think Steve was just playing around with the feature.
Got it.
Unless he's not consistent.
So particularly any questions about, you know, self-improvement, seeing in yourself what you need to improve.
Yeah, Corey.
Well, guys, you have a chance to talk to John, ask John questions. Also, if you want to come on and just tell us what your red flags are, we'd like to know what your red flags are, and we'd like to know what your no-go red flags are. So, you know, jump in and talk to us. If not, we'll just keep talking about Mean Girls.
So Steve does have a question, but he's going to put it in the chat. So does John feel maybe it's his?
I think she meant calling in life.
Yeah, this is I was like,
Ailing in life.
ailing?
Oh,
Okay. To tame the mean girls. Well, Steve, I will say I'm a mean girl, and just tonight he tamed me. Corey's out. He's done.
1, you're not mean. 2, I've not tamed you. No, there may have been a part of me once that thought that would be fun. But you know, that has not gone well for me in the past. And I wouldn't say I ever became like an expert at it, or like, you know, where I got lost in that too much. But yeah, I want people to just be who they are around me, and rather than try to make them anything, let them be what they are. And then if they work for me, then we'll stick together. So
if you have a question, please raise your hand so that way we can get to you, but don't turn on your video until you're instructed to, please. See, that's my mean side.
boundaries are not mean.
Sure.
I mean, fair boundaries, of course.
Yeah.
My daughter continuously likes to tell me that I don't love and care about her. But the only ways that she wants me to love and care about her are to give her money when she wants it and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how real love works.
No. I wish, but no. I like to work hard for my money.
I think she's hopefully starting to learn. Actually, I haven't talked to her in a while. I keep reminding myself, I got to text her. But she's a smart girl. She'll figure it out. But she's made a few bumps in the road for herself.
Yeah.
You know, so did I.
So Heidi, if you're gonna test all your theories, you're gonna have to get out there and start dating. Because you got to weed through all the crazies to get to the good stuff.
we're gonna have to have a follow-up show to this 6 months from now. So having applied now the things that you've learned to actual dating experiences, a minimum of 20 by the 6-month mark. Oh yeah. Even
that's really funny.
You're gonna have to go to Pocatello and Boise more often.
I might have shared that in a misleading way. It's not that I'm turning down a bunch of offers. That's not the case.
Well, maybe what you need to do is just put yourself in a position to get offers. You're not going to do that just sitting around in Twin Falls.
What?
You do kind of.
I missed the memo.
Right.
I need to go to Twin Falls, Heidi.
Well, I recently actually considered if I was getting some messages from Heavenly Father about whether I was supposed to move, and I went to the temple and I feel like I'm not supposed to move. So I'm apparently supposed to be here for whatever reason.
Okay, John, I totally thought your dog was a wig. I'm not going to lie. It's like you're rocking a mullet.
Well, he's so dark.
Hey, Terry, I would totally look good with that wig.
Mullet.
I think if you had hair on top of your head, it would throw us all for a loop.
He's been bugging me this whole show. He's just like, it's too
So is
early to
mine.
do this show.
Yeah.
He
so
wants
mine.
to. He's trying to play with me and stuff.
Heidi, maybe one of these times I'll go get a wig and I'll have to bring it to the show and surprise all of you
Oh,
guys.
nice.
And I will too. I'll just like pretend like
So you want a mullet? Do you want rocker? Do you want like corporate?
Oh, Bon Jovi, all the way. Oh, young Bon Jovi.
Young Bon Jovi. There
Oh
you go.
my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Some of the best music ever.
Well, I think we're getting to the we're wrapping up the end of the show here. We've had actually a really good time, and we had a really good time getting to know you, Heidi.
Thanks.
And I think we had a really good discussion, I think, about red flags and even looking at our own faults. I mean, I think you're right, Heidi. I think once we start to address the stuff that we want to make ourselves better, I mean, I definitely want to be the best person I can be for somebody that I date and maybe even somebody that I marry someday. I want to be the best version of myself. I definitely don't want to bring in any bad habits, whether it be, being the guy that's always, oh, I'm sorry. Yep, you're right. I'm always wrong and you're always right. Cause that might irritate somebody who's normal. Like, stop saying that. Sometimes I'm wrong, it's like, so I don't want to be the irritating guy. So I have to work on, stuff. And I think it's important that we work on ourselves.
Yes.
I think that's the worst disservice we can give ourselves, is to leave a relationship presuming they were the problem.
Never.
Even if they did the most toxic stuff, don't let that distract you from the fact that, there's still stuff we could have done, to make it better, or to at least respond in a healthier way, so that even if they crashed and burned, we could look back without shame.
Yeah, we don't have to ride the Mayday down to the ground.
Yeah, one of the surest signs of shame to me in someone is when they just cannot let it go about all the wrong things their ex did, and what it sort of belies the issue of, wow, what did you do or didn't do to perpetuate that, that pattern, and I'm not looking to blame either one. And I totally get how there's something someone can do that, can really traumatize people in a way where it's hard for them to show up as their best self. But then even that we need to acknowledge. I was traumatized, and I allowed that really led me to behave in ways that I wasn't proud of, and
Right,
even
and
that would be healthier.
And that's just part of that self-awareness process. I would say if we haven't gotten to the point where we can recognize contributing traumas or whatever, then we're not ready. But
also being able to,
Corey, oh, go ahead.
And also being able to apologize, even if you don't think you did something wrong. Like,
yeah, of course.
Your feelings, it's about their feelings. And so if you're able to just be like, I'm really sorry I did that. I didn't realize I was doing that. Or I didn't realize
that it would have that effect on you.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the message I was sending, type of thing.
Right.
The only thing I would say is don't apologize for things that are truly healthy and fine.
Oh, well, yeah.
But even then you can offer compassion and empathy for someone that's struggling with it. Just say,
Right.
I don't feel like I did anything wrong in that situation, but I certainly don't want you to feel hurt and and upset, and so if there's a way that I can help you through that, without admitting to something I didn't do, I'll do it.
Another thing that I do too, and again, John, correct me if I'm wrong, if I've already discussed something, I don't bring it up again because it's already been discussed, as long as I feel everything has been mutually resolved. I do not bring it up again. I won't bring it up teasingly. I won't bring it up in a fight. I won't bring it up any point in time. At that point in time, that topic's dead.
Yeah, that's a good one.
No exhibit A, B, and C.
Right.
Yeah.
Corey does that because it's his job. He just does that.
I have clients who call it the Rolodex. I put things in and then I keep rolling it back, it back. Oh yeah, remember this guy? And it's like, oh yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah, my son specifically, he'll try to do that. And my response to him is, do you feel that things were not resolved the first time we discussed it? Because if you feel that things are not resolved, let's sit down and resolve it now so you don't have to bring it up again.
Yeah, I've literally, I think most of us know the pain of having things brought up.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember things brought up in my first marriage, literally 2 decades later.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Like
Oh
a
no,
time,
yeah.
like a time that I lost my temper with one of our kids. I got upset with him because he did something, and and it's like, you were really irritable with our kid, and it's like, when was the last time I did that?
Yeah.
Well, when that time in family home evening when you got upset, and I go, that was literally 20 years ago. I was a young 20 something, bonehead at the time. Now I'm, like 40 something. I think I've learned a thing or two between then and now, and I certainly haven't gone off on any of our kids for at least a decade, and that's the thing. That's the thing.
We have to have a statute of limitations.
Yeah, at some point you gotta let it go. And I think that's the key is people. That's why I think I love on this show that we don't have people talk a lot about their exes and all the horrible things they did. And here's why. One, if they did, we don't know the reasons why. Someday we're gonna have empathy for everybody that ever sinned, including ourselves. And when we do, I think we'll be really sad that we badmouthed them about it. The other thing is people change. I have no idea, what my ex is doing or what either of my 2 exes are doing these days. For all I know, they're great. They're doing great. And I hope so. I literally am pulling for them to do great, but whether they're doing great or not, I have to believe in the possibility of changing. I know I've changed. So I certainly hope that nobody in my past is holding me up to something I did a decade or 2 ago and has allowed me the chance to change. I think that's as much to their benefit as mine.
Correct.
And that's the last thing I want to do is write off somebody that could be a really beautiful part of my life because of something they did long ago.
Thank goodness for the atonement, huh? That's how we get better.
Hallelujah.
And the other thing too is fighting fair, learning how to fight fair, trying to keep emotion out of it and really discuss what is truly bothering you. Don't just
or at least just be honest about the emotion and get to the underlying emotion, not so much the surface crap.
Correct.
Anger is one of the least healthy emotions.
Well, and usually, in fact, I think I've heard you say this, John, but isn't it like what I want to use the term secondary emotion? It's usually coming from a place, I think often is fear.
Actually, the 2 underlying emotions that you'll almost always find behind anger are fear and hurt. And really, fear and hurt actually go hand in hand, because if you've hurt me, I'm afraid of you.
So by hurt, you don't mean shame. You mean
no. Yeah, I just feel hurt. Sad would be another way of saying that. Just I feel hurt. In hurt, there's not a lot of blame either for myself or others. If I'm afraid and I can just acknowledge that, there's power in that. If I express my fear and my hurt, I'm vulnerable about that, I tend to draw people in. When I cover it up with anger, I push people away. And the ironic thing is we do anger with people who have addictions or people who cheated on us or people who, hurt us somehow. And in the process, we become their excuse. And we push them in away even further into the very things that we don't want them to do. That doesn't mean they have to do that. They could divert that into something healthier, but it's not good for them.
Right.
It's like we shame the already ashamed. And I think it would just be better to say, you hurt me. It hurts when you are not faithful in our relationship. It hurts when you go to your addiction to deal with your emotions instead of coming to me or, working through it with me or, okay, that's a conversation, we can, that's a lot easier to have for a healthy person. If they're narcissistic or borderline, you can be as healthy as you want to be and they're still going to have the affair or do the addiction or get mad at you or blame you or whatever.
So Monica has some questions in the chat. Unless Monica wants to jump on and ask him, have her jump on.
Probably not.
I think she just wanted to there.
Yeah.
I could jump on and talk probably, but my phone is like being really wacky with the sound. So I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah. So I have an interesting question about anger because this is something that I've always really, like, I never get angry. And I think, and I've had my therapist once in a while tell me, like, I think it would actually really help you to be angry about this. And I think it has to do with like placing blame appropriately and that sort of stuff. But it's one of those things where I'm like, I think in most cases, like anger is a secondary emotion that's not helpful. But I guess my question was, have you seen or experienced occasions where anger was productive?
So here's what we got to be careful about. There are forms of intense emotion that people will label anger, and I don't buy it. I don't think that's anger.
You mean like frustration?
Well, no, frustration is just mild anger.
Okay.
I'm talking about intense pain, intense hurt. Like if you're just kind of, it's almost like there are people who've been traumatized and they might need to yell and scream. They might need to really let out that. And that seems like they're angry, and they're not. That is just intense, expressing their intense pain over something that hurt them. You know what I mean? And so
wait, I'm confused. Can you demonstrate that for us? Because I don't really know.
Shut up, Terry. And so what
Terry's
I would
being a mean girl.
Yeah,
I know.
So I'm saying don't be afraid of intensity, but be careful we need to be careful what we label anger. I think anger is very blaming. It's very vengeful. It's attacking. It's punishing. It's, some of that stuff. And I don't think that's ever healthy. But if I'm expressing intense pain, that may sound really angry when it's just intense. It's just, I've seen people literally heal from just screaming and crying. In fact, I'll be honest with you. I think one of the most intensely powerful healing experiences I've ever seen is a woman weeping openly and yelling and even screaming at her husband, and him just standing in that, totally owning it like a boss, being totally solid for her, and have her express that pain. And then he's standing waiting for her at the end of that experience. That is just one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed in my life. And the reason is because these masculine and feminine qualities, are so powerful. And to me, positive masculine, that ability to just stand in the middle of a storm, unwavering. There's just something really amazing about that. And they've even done research on this. I think there's a reason why, women who've been traumatized and can do therapy with a male therapist tend to heal better than if they have a female therapist. The problem is some of them are so traumatized they can't trust a male therapist, and I get that. But the reason is, if I can feel that masculine presence and it's for me, not against me, it's safe, not hurtful, that can be very, very powerful. And that includes when I want to express intense emotion. You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of men interpret that as anger and they run from it when they should be going in after it. And penetrating that beautiful heart and saying, I'm not buying the BS that this is going to hurt me. I am here for you. You go ahead and let that all out, baby. We're going to work it out together. And when that happens, it is a miracle. I'm witnessing a miracle. So.
Well, that's a good,
I know we're out of time. I just think it's interesting because I feel like I totally agree with what you're saying. And at the same time, I found like in my own experiences that I've had moments of feeling like intense emotion, but never been, I guess like one of the things is I'm never able to see someone as not human. Right. And
right.
So it can make it really hard sometimes for me personally, like to, and not even necessarily like sometimes hold people accountable, but like to just express that side of like,
well, we can hold them accountable with just the pain of it. for sure. And I'm not saying we should not let that intensity show. And by the way, I actually do think anger can be healthy in this one respect. Express it to know that it's not the answer. You know, if you need to go down that wrong road, you know, that's the way that Elder Holland described it, you know, to know that that's, you know, I didn't die being angry, but I learned that that underneath anger was something more beautiful and more meaningful, although probably every bit as intense, that I needed to get to. And maybe the only path to that was through anger. And if that's the case, yeah, I'm not too worried about anger. I think it's only anger that becomes entrenched and we can't release that's going to be toxic for, you know, what I hate to see is victims who suffer for the sins of their perpetrators. That is, like, to me, the ultimate injustice. And the one way we do that is through anger and bitterness and revenge and resentment. You know, like the Buddha said, that is a poison that you drink hoping to kill the other person, you know. And so ultimately we have to let go of that. If me indulging in that will help me get to that place, I'm all for it. Like I told Terry earlier, whatever works, you know.
Yes, that's a great way to end it. I think we had a great topic discussion tonight. It was really good. We have a lot of, hope you guys took some notes out there, and I think we'll walk away from this with some self-reflection. Hopefully, maybe look in the mirror and not yell at each other in the mirror, but yell at ourselves. But you know, maybe look at ourselves and like, all right, knock it off. You know, you can do better. And so I think that's the goal of tonight, was to just kind of figure out ways to self-reflect, look at ourselves, figure out what it is we want, what it is that we want to bring to a relationship, what we need to improve, and then just go from there and just see what we can do. But thanks, Heidi, for coming on, being the hot seat.